So here I am. Here you are. It's the Micah Podcast universe. We've already started, Jordan. Did you even know that?
Wow. No, I didn't hear the music.
Yeah, well, a little peek behind the curtain, people. I put in the music after we're done recording.
Mm-hmm.
But here we are.
Most excellent.
Most excellent. Wow. What's that from?
I don't know. It just sounds cool when I say it.
It does sound cool. It does sound very cool. Here we are. It's the Micah Podcast universe. It's the podcast that exists to prove people wrong when they say
Sequels are never better than the originals.
And here's what happened. Earlier this year, we covered the character of Batman, basically. We went through the Burton movies, the Zack Snyder movies,
really
the
diving
Christopher
into
Nolan.
the character.
We did. And then I was thinking about it as we were trying. There were a few series that have been floating around for a while. Of course, that's gonna that'll always be the case. But there is this actor who is a particular flavor. I don't know what spice you'd compare him to, but it's the kind of thing
he's a
where
spice entirely of his own. He is his own. He is a spice.
But he's the sort of thing where, like, hey, if you put him on a salad, it might make the salad taste really bad. But if you put him on a burger or something like that, it might be the best burger you've ever had.
Yeah.
He's that kind of an actor. He's particular. I don't think he quite gets enough credit for his acting in particular.
I would say he gets trashed on a lot.
Although in recent years, I think...
Yeah.
The person we're talking about is Keanu Reeves.
But I thought we were gonna just keep that a secret the whole time.
We were. But I think with John Wick, I think everyone's kind of looking back on his career.
I think so, yeah.
And they're kind of like...
Me included.
Yeah, me included too. So he has 3 franchises that are uber successful, and they all have trilogies. So we thought, like Batman, let's take an actor who is ultra famous and in a lot of ways has redefined portions of cinema more than once.
Can I just do a straight up intro from this book on him?
Yes, please.
Okay, so this is the new biographical dictionary of film by David Thompson, which we have referenced a couple of times. He writes this: Keanu Reeves has come through all the routine questions that seem to face a young, on the margins American movie actor. Questions like, what does that hairstyle mean? What sort of name is that? Where are you really from? And are you for real? By the time he was 30, Reeves had made around 20 films. Some were forgettable, a few were very big hits, a few seemed beyond him. Yet Reeves kept coming, the energy undaunted, his watchful face unclouded. As yet, maybe, he shows not too much of what it is like to be in your 30s. Being 30 now for actors is akin to the difficulty of being 40 for actresses. But Reeves has been good often enough to have earned respect.
Wow. So he likes him.
Yeah.
Because if you'll notice on our previous episodes where we've talked about this, sometimes this author like really doesn't like an actor and will kind of rail into them. But yeah, so here is what's going to happen. Over the rest of this year of 2021, and I think even leaking into January of next year, we will be going all Keanu.
All the time,
except for our Eternals episode, our Spider-Man episode, and our Scream episode of the new movies that are coming out in theaters. And so what we're doing right now is we're kicking it off with his first real hit of his career. I mean, I don't know a whole lot pre Bill and Ted, but it seems like the next movie, Bogus Journey, is like, okay, Keanu has officially arrived in his first form. So obviously this plays into that because this is the first of that movie. And then we'll be going into The Matrix, and we lined it up perfectly so that when we finish 3, we will be able to watch the 4th movie and cover that as it comes out.
Without skipping a beat.
And then we will be covering John Wick.
Yes.
Because the fascinating thing that I want to make sure we're keying into as we're covering these is these are like 3 bookmarks in his career that are distinct, specific like elements of his career. Yeah. And not a lot of actors have that.
Yeah.
Because we have this doofy, like young kid phase turned into action hero, redefine cinema as a whole, and then like the perfect version of like Liam Neeson Taken after that. I mean, this guy has kind of done it all.
I know.
And he's kind of miraculous. And so let's talk about Keanu.
Yeah.
So
I can go into. So this movie came out in '89.
yeah.
So prior to that, he was in movies like Flying, Youngblood, The Night Before, The Prince of Pennsylvania, Dangerous Liaisons. It's hard, especially when you're looking at the word.
Yeah.
And then Bill and Ted.
Yeah. So I mean,
those other movies I've never seen.
Neither have I. This is his first like.
This is his breakout.
Yeah. And so yeah, should I talk about how it was made now?
Yeah.
Or do you want to hit any more actors first?
Oh yeah, sure. I guess just since we're here.
Yeah, I mean, why don't you tell us about Bill?
Oh, I'm like, Bill. Alex Winter, who plays Bill S. Preston Esquire. He is also in Zappa, The Panama Papers, Trust Machine. Gotta say, this is the first and only thing I've ever seen him in.
Mm-hmm.
Keanu definitely took off. And is in way more well-known things.
Yeah.
Although Alex Winter has been consistently working.
Sure.
Ever since as well.
Well, I mean, Alex has probably had the career Keanu would have if he didn't star in Point Break and The Matrix.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, so he's in a lot of shows as well. Including like he's even in like Ben 10, which is, like a kid's thing.
Yeah.
So very, very active. And then George Carlin plays Rufus, who is also in Dogma. He's also a comedian. He's in Jersey Girl, which I don't know. I might have seen a tiny bit of this movie, but it's Ben Affleck and Liv Tyler. And it's about a widower, Ben Affleck, who has to like rebuild his life with his daughter. Directed by Kevin Smith.
Okay, I was going to ask if it was the Kevin Smith movie. Yes.
That sounds bizarre.
It does. And according to Patrick Willem's breakdown on Kevin Smith, it's not very good.
Yeah.
But it was interesting, I think, was his take. It was an interesting entry into Kevin Smith's career, but not necessarily a good entry.
Just, yeah, very interesting. He's also narrated a lot of the Thomas the Train.
Thomas, the like choo choo,
the friendly blue train. Thomas. He's just billed as narrator.
Very cool.
So much of it though, like probably everything Thomas that's ever come out, George Carlin has narrated it.
Oh, I was still thinking we were talking about Alex
Thomas
Winters.
the Blue Engine.
Yeah.
What's the official name?
Thomas. Oh man, Sean Muir's yelling at his podcast right now. Thomas the Choo Choo? Isn't it just Thomas the Choo Choo?
The Choo Choo? I don't think so. I gotta say though, that stuff always freaked me out. The faces are too weird.
There's something, it gets into Uncanny Valley territory.
Yeah. And then he's in the Cars franchise. He's in a Scary Movie. Yeah. But so much Thomas the Train. It's crazy.
Thomas the Big Blue Train? No. I was thinking the Clifford the Big Red Dog.
Oh, yeah. Should I go over the people who are taken from history? This is just interesting. The guy that plays Billy the Kid is in Tron, the 1982 movie.
Very cool.
And the guy who plays Socrates is in Scrooged.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fine.
Great. The guy who plays Napoleon's in The Truman Show.
Very cool. Okay. So, I just, anytime we start a new series, it's like when I'm most excited, setting everything up and talking about how it all got started. But, my first question is, what is your experience with Bill and Ted?
Oh, yeah. So this is my first time ever seeing it. And this was for me my whole life not understanding what this was and maybe seeing like a couple snapshots on TV and being like, "Oh, Keanu looks so dumb in this. Like he sucks." And then I always thought that Pauly Shore was the other guy. I don't know why.
No, they did consider him for this movie.
But maybe that's just a blind, like there's another movie that has Pauly Shore that is kind of like this.
Although, how weird would it be if you, as a kid, like heard that they considered Pauly Shore
No,
and you
that's not
remembered
possible.
that information?
And then I always got this confused with Dazed and Confused because I did not know probably the most critical information about Bill and Ted is that they travel through time, and I didn't know that.
Did you not know that till we watched it?
I did not know that till we watched this movie.
Are you serious?
I thought it was just a couple of potheads.
Oh my
getting
gosh!
into hijinks. Yeah,
that is so funny.
So when this started and with the time travel stuff, I'm like, oh, this is unlike anything I thought. I mean, the silliness was still there.
That makes sense why you were pretty apprehensive to watch this. You were kind of like, so like the whole time when I basically...
I thought it would be like a bunch of potheads, not a bunch, like they're like, and by that I mean in movie stereotypes as losers in school.
Yeah.
You know, and they just like skip class all the time. They just care about girls, like just kind of boring American Pie kind of stuff.
You did not think it was going to be a time traveling story that's kind of talking about the beauty of knowing nothing and how that is like true wisdom.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
That is so funny. So, oh my gosh.
And by the way, I loved it. This was so great. And I said this to Micah after we watched it, that it's so great watching a movie that has so much weight behind it, and to watch it and to get it.
Yeah,
because there are so many times when you watch something that you were told is a classic, and you watch it and you're like, I didn't like it. Why was that a classic? And it's like, I guess I just have to accept that I just missed it and I don't get it.
Well, yeah, there's so many movies that like you have to kind of do a little research to figure out why they're so important.
Yeah,
like the one I think about right off the bat. It's a great movie, and I liked it when we watched it, but it is so understated when you watch Bonnie and Clyde today.
Yeah.
You don't understand how much of a game changer that movie like changed the entire industry of filmmaking.
Right.
And so when you watch it, you're like, oh, this is pretty good.
Yeah.
And you're like, I like this kind of.
Another really easy one that comes to my mind is Star Wars.
Oh, come
I'm
on.
kidding.
Get out of here.
I'm kidding.
But, yeah, so sometimes you have to do work to kind of understand why it's important.
No work required.
It's just hilarious.
Which is kind of the heart of the movie anyway.
Yeah. What's a funny thing is, too, you mentioning the pothead stuff. I remember listening, probably like last year sometime, to an episode of some show that Griffin Newman was on, like guesting, and they talked about this movie. And I remember them discussing for a while how, like, there's this whole kind of stoner...
Yeah.
Like people remember this movie as being like a stoner movie.
They don't do any drugs.
But they never do drugs. They don't drink alcohol.
Well, technically they have beer.
Oh, they do. They do have beer.
But also, like, they're not even drinking the beer. They just like basically order it and love that they can just get beer in the Wild West.
Yeah, and I haven't seen the next one, but I think that's just like it's in the catalog of like, okay, this is a stoner movie, but it actually doesn't really have any like drugs in it.
No, not at all. They don't even talk about it.
They don't. It's
I don't
very
think they
funny.
talk about it.
Yeah.
I'm glad it was. I mean, not to say that movies like that can't be good or anything.
Well, Dazed and Confused is a masterpiece.
Yeah, and I always thought Dazed and Confused was goofy.
Yeah.
And then I see it, and of course it's got goofy stuff in it, but it is like, it's a Richard Linklater movie. It's going to make you feel.
Yeah.
So I'm glad it was, my preconceived notions were wrong.
Yeah. Well, my first experience, so a long, long time ago, you'll remember this. I used to watch movie fights on YouTube.
Yeah.
Which was like a Screen Junkie movie channel, and they just ask a question, people would fight over answers. And the question was like, what's a series where the second movie is better?
Yeah.
Which is our thesis for our podcast. And someone argued about Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey, which is the next one.
Okay.
And so when I heard that, their argument for the movie, I thought, that sounds pretty wild and out there. I got to watch it. And so I watched the first movie.
Yeah.
Remember, I watched it on my phone.
Oh, brother.
Great format. Back when I lived at my parents' house, I watched a movie.
know your parents had a TV.
Yeah, but I think I was just like, oh, I'm gonna go to bed and like kind of watch this movie as I'm getting ready for bed and stuff like that. So I watched it, and I remember like enjoying it, not like falling in love with it or anything like that. And then the second movie was just not on the same. It was like I think I watched it on Hulu, and the second movie wasn't on, so I never got around to watching the second movie.
Oh, so you still have never seen it?
So I have only seen this movie.
Oh, okay. So you still don't know if that's true or not,
I
or
don't.
if you agree with that.
Yeah, but watched this movie again the other day, and I liked it way more
Probably
as
because
I'm
you
older.
weren't watching it on a phone and you were laughing with another person.
Yeah. And I have a lot less of my like, is this movie a number one movie ever, or is it just an okay movie? You know, I've kind of like killed that
One
part
or
of
the
me.
other.
So it's great. I love this movie.
Yeah.
It's so funny. And there was I can't remember the exact moment, but there was a moment where you remember I was just like legitimately laughing for a little while.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's a lot of snickers and stuff throughout, but there was a moment in particular that I just kind of like lost it.
What
It's
part?
so good. I don't remember the part off the top of my head.
Okay.
I just remember like it made me do that.
Yeah.
So I like this movie a lot. I love
My
this movie.
big part the part that made me laugh really hard. I mean, there were several, but one that really comes up off the top is when they're giving their presentation and Sigmund Freud is analyzing Keanu Reeves, and he's like, your dad projects himself onto you, and that's why you perceive yourself as a failure when really you're your father's failure. And Keanu's just like, whoa, dude.
Yeah. And then
Bill's like, he's like, Sigmund says to Bill, you next? And he's like, no, I know I got a minor Oedipal complex.
Okay, so let's talk about who made this movie though. So the movie is directed by Stephen Herrick, and his first movie is Critters.
Okay.
And then he made this movie, but he's also made The Mighty Ducks.
Yeah.
Mr. Holland's Opus.
What's that?
That is a movie starring Richard Dreyfuss, which I have not seen, but the Phelps are always like, Micah, you haven't seen Mr. Holland's Opus? It's like about a conductor or a composer.
Yeah, it sounds boring.
Looks good.
I'm just kidding.
And then he also directed the 101 Dalmatians starring Glenn Close.
Oh, I love that movie. I mean, I don't know if it holds up, but I loved that movie as a kid.
It probably does.
That's why Glenn Close will always and forever be Cruella de Vil to me. Like anytime I see her,
yeah,
that's what I see.
Yeah, me too. So these two friends, Chris.
Wait. So he is really good at camp.
Yeah.
You just said so many just like good family time movies.
Yeah.
That are pretty cheesy.
And this falls right in line with those.
Absolutely.
Good director.
He's great.
He's kind of now more in the like, I mean, maybe it's not unfortunate to him. Unfortunate to me, like kind of network television episodes like Hawaii Five-0 and stuff like that, which is a bummer.
I mean, but you could argue, isn't that where camp has really left?
Okay.
These days. Rest my case.
Nah, I'm not going to add the applause to that one.
Okay. Or you could do.
So Chris Matheson and Ed Solomon are the two writers of this movie, and they were buddies. And in 1987, they started writing a script based on the stand-up routine that they had.
Okay, yeah.
There's like two comedians.
Yeah.
They do the stand-up routine. You know, I don't know for how long, but then they're like, hey, we should turn that into a script.
Yeah.
So they write the movie.
So I'm assuming they're Bill and Ted.
Yeah.
In their
I
routine?
actually didn't even think of that. But we'll come back to that. So just put a little asterisk there. So Chris Matheson and Ed Solomon, I keep thinking Ed Sullivan.
Yeah, I know, I can tell.
And Ed Solomon, they have written all three of the Bill and Ted movies.
Very cool.
So we can look forward to them
that's great.
being a part of all of it.
A little bit of consistency.
Absolutely. And Chris Matheson has done a bunch of other stuff I've never heard of. But Ed Solomon has also done The First Men in Black, The First Charlie's Angels, and he's been writing all of the Now You See Me movies.
Talk about cheese. That guy loves it.
We love
he can't
cheese.
stop eating it.
No. He is not.
Have you seen the Now You See Me?
No.
Okay.
He is not. What is that called when you're allergic to dairy?
He's not lactose intolerant.
Most excellent. The cinematography is by Timothy Serstead, who did Idiocracy, Mystic Pizza, and we've seen a lot of this guy's work because he's done 44 episodes of Silicon Valley.
Shoot. Yeah, we have.
Guy knows how to shoot a comedy.
He does.
The music is by David Newman, who did The Nutty Professor, Anastasia, How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, the new Tarzan movie, and we're talking about him on Patreon this month because he did the 2 Scooby-Doo live-action movies.
Wait, this is a composer?
Yes.
Okay.
David Newman. So go to patreon.com/Micah McCaw.
It's all cheese all the time this month.
Yes, it is. That's November, the month of cheese and turkey.
Yep.
Movie comes out February 17th, 1989. It has a $10 million budget. It makes $40 million.
Nice.
Domestically, $25,000 outside of the U.S.
Okay.
So they basically only released it in the U.S. So
that's a lot of money still.
Hey, that's wonderful. They quadrupled
they got to buy
their
so
budget.
much more cheese.
Okay, calm down, buddy. So the 2 writers get the script to the director. I think they were shopping it around for a little while, and the director reads it, and he loves it.
Mm-hmm.
But he says right away, he goes, okay, if we're going to do this, we just need to know that this is going to be either a hit or a complete flop that no one is going to get.
Yeah.
So he knows what he's in for.
Yeah.
The spec script for this was quite a bit different.
Okay.
So they were going to be, like, the time machine was going to be a van.
Okay.
Which they later changed because of Back to the Future. Didn't want similarities. And while they're driving the van, they end up in Nazi Germany. And after some hijinks, they bring Adolf Hitler back to San Dimas. And then they continue to collect other historical figures. And then Solomon affirmed...
Someone else probably read it and was like, the Hitler thing, not so funny.
Yeah. Well, Solomon affirmed this clearly became problematic, and Hitler was switched out with Napoleon in their final script.
Yeah.
And then the writers didn't know anything about Doctor Who. So they were not aware of Doctor Who.
In your research, it was clearly stated.
Yes.
So this is what I think.
Yes.
Okay, well, no. This is what I think is just during this time in history, Doctor Who wasn't popular in the U.S.
No, it wasn't. I don't think it was.
To remember, it's like, so, yeah. I'm just thinking there are other instances of phone booths being used for stuff. Like they use it in Harry Potter.
Well, I mean, Superman changes in a phone booth.
Yeah.
I wonder if...
So it's not like a ripoff. And I don't think anyone's saying it is.
No.
I think it's just interesting.
But they've just noted that, like, they didn't know what Doctor Who was. So it wasn't an homage or anything like that.
Yeah. They did call it a TARDIS, though.
Is that what it's called?
Yeah. No, and they didn't call it.
How do you know so much about Doctor Who?
I don't know. It was... Remember it really blew up a couple years ago?
When they put it on Netflix?
Yeah. I watched one episode that Sydney told me to watch.
Huh.
And it had Karen Gillan in it.
Gillian, yeah.
Gillian?
Or
from
Guardians? Nebula. It had Nebula.
Yeah.
I'm blanking on her name.
But let's just say that is my extent of Doctor Who.
Okay. So Alex Winter and Keanu Reeves were waiting for their audition. And they just started talking before the audition.
Oh, and they became friends immediately.
Yeah, they did. So
did they? You probably don't know.
Yes, go ahead.
Did they audition for the same role, or did they just audition and then they were like callbacks for these specific characters? I
don't know.
Fine.
So they obviously had chemistry.
Yeah.
And they've, from what I can tell, from like, in the lead up to Bill and Ted Face the Music coming out last year, I would see tweets from Alex Winter and stuff like that. And it seems like the guys have just been buds all this time.
That's great.
I get that impression.
To hear that.
Oh, yeah. Now, let's talk about the people on the throne when they visit the future.
Yeah.
Because this is kind of fun. It is Clarence Clemens, who is one of the members of the E Street Band.
Okay.
John Waldo Fee Whale, and he's in the band The Tubes, and he's worked with Toto and a bunch of other bands.
Wow.
And then we have Martha Davis, who is in this band called the Motels.
That's cool.
They got a bunch of musicians
Yeah.
to do that. They brought in the production designer from Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Roy Forge Smith is his name. And then originally they were going to just have it end with them doing the report in the classroom. And then they were going to go to prom with the British girls. But then they just thought, that's not like, we should just go crazy at the end.
Yeah, you just got to go nuts. Apparently this whole school is like, that's hours and hours of presentations.
Right. And so finally, the original cut of this movie was 2 hours and 25 minutes.
Oh my goodness.
And it sounds like it was just longer. There was just a lot more scenes in it. Not like a...
Not plot stuff necessarily.
Well, some of it did sound like that, but I mean, like sometimes when cuts are longer, it seems like, oh, they just kept cutting scenes down and stuff like this.
Yeah.
Like scenes that are in the movie. This
yeah.
seems like they have whole scenes that are just not in the movie.
Yeah.
And according to Alex Winters, like a lot, if not all of that footage is like lost.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah.
Because that'd be a fun special edition.
It would be. So I thought this was crazy. This is a bit long, Jordan. So gear up. We have Tom Holland of The Observer, a film critic.
Not Peter Parker.
Not Peter Parker.
Okay.
And he had this to say about Bill and Ted. To let's put ourselves...
Is this in 1989? This review?
I don't know.
Well, I think it's important.
Let me see.
I think you'll know once you start reading it.
No, I won't. I
Oh.
had to look it up here. But now it's too late. You can't change this.
It's just, and I think whatever review it is, I think it's important to know if it came out in 1989 or if it's a reflection on it.
Yeah.
Because this is like a cultural timestamp, this movie.
I mean, I'm seeing it from 2010.
Okay.
But I don't know. It could be like a reprint. I have no idea.
Okay.
And I don't think that affects what I'm going to say. It's just,
Someone out there is like, I understand what she's saying.
no, I understand what you're saying. It's just funny. Like you always have all these questions, and they're never things. You always ask the questions that I don't have the answers to.
I'm sorry. You know, I'm never upset that you can't answer them, though, right?
I know
4
that.
years of marriage, and I need to reiterate that.
I know. And I'm not actually mad. I'm just like, ah.
Yeah, you're like the old guy in Dennis the Menace. Dennis.
Sure. Yeah, I don't remember.
Yeah.
Another reference I'm not tracking with.
Yeah.
So, Tom Holland of The Observer writes this. Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure does not tend to be rated as one of cinema's profounder treatments of the relationship between present and past. The story of two Californian slackers with a time machine who, for complicated reasons, have to assemble assorted celebrities from history in order to pass a high school project. It is chiefly remembered for bringing Keanu Reeves to the attention of a mass audience. Classicists, however, will always cherish it as the only film ever to combine the music of Van Halen with Greek philosophy. When Bill and Ted embark on their quest, what should be their first destination, if not classical Athens, and who should be the very first, quote, historical dude bundled into their time machine, if not a bald-headed man in a sheet who they persist in calling Socrates. Even to metalheads, then, the philosophy of ancient Greece serves as something that is both primal and emblematic of civilization as a whole. Socrates, in particular, the lover of wisdom, who insisted that the most fundamental presumptions of his countrymen should be subjected to experimental investigation, and who ended up being made to drink hemlock for his pains, has always been admired as the very fountainhead of rationalism. Yet, when it comes to identifying what he taught and believed, there's a problem, on which Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure rather unexpectedly puts its finger. Socrates, transplanted to 1980s California, can only communicate with his abductors by gesturing and gurning. Since Bill and Ted, it goes without saying, speak not a word of ancient Greek, even the miracle of time travel, it appears, cannot serve to alter what is, for any historian, a most awkward fact, that it is impossible to be certain of what Socrates actually said.
What?
So
he's saying that even still we never like Socrates doesn't know what he's talking about.
Yeah.
Or we can never understand it,
Like-
and the
like-
movie just further explains that.
Yes, that's what he's
That's
saying.
funny.
Yeah. Well, I mean, on a second viewing of this movie, I thought like this movie, it's so silly, but this is a very philosophical movie.
Yeah.
And to not rank it up in like high comedies, I think is strange.
Yeah.
Because I think this has a lot to say, and it's also hilarious.
And they straight up do time travel things that I have never seen in a movie
No.
that are like awesome. When they're just like, I think maybe later on we can get my dad's keys and put in here so that right now we can have the keys. And then the keys are just there.
I know.
That is amazing.
Well, so, okay, can we sidebar for a second here on time travel? This week, I was talking to you about how I'm kind of ready for people to explore different theories of time travel in movies.
Yeah.
Because, like, it feels like every movie right now, they do this version of time travel where, like, everything in history is accounted for time travel. Meaning, like, I'm in a room and a door is open, but I had just shut it. And it's like, huh? How did the door get open? And then I time travel, and then you see that me in the past links up with the future and opens the door.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh, that's why the door was open. So history is already accounted for it. And while I love that, it is great. And I do think Tenet was like a fresh perspective on that idea. I do think it's a little tired.
Well, I think it can be because a lot of times when you do that, you have to go back and explain it all. And that can just become so arduous.
Yeah.
Like one of the best examples of that for me is Prisoner of Azkaban.
Yeah.
Because that's exactly what happens is rocks get thrown. Don't know who's throwing the rocks. Later on, you find out it was Hermione and Harry who was throwing the rocks at Harry and Hermione.
Yeah.
And you got through so much of this, of kind of the climax of the story, and you get to this point and you have to go through it again.
I know.
And while that, I love that movie, it's so good, and the book's really good too, and everything. That is becoming the hardest one for me to watch.
Yeah,
I
because you
often
always
might
get
not
to that
finish
point
it.
and you're like, oh, there's still a half hour.
Yeah, it's just like you know because you've just sat through it
Yeah.
that how much more you have to go.
And that's not bad.
No, and like I said, great book, great movie, love it.
Yeah, see our episode on that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just think like we've kind of explored that maybe as much as we can, at least for
Yeah.
a little while. So I'd like some people to take some different approaches to time travel. So oddly enough, watching this movie that is almost 30 or over 30 years old, it was nice to see them do things like, oh, let's just remember something happening and it just pops up.
Yeah.
Oh, we just had to make sure we do that in the future, not the past. That's also funny.
But it's like they explain it in a way that's like, yeah, that works for me.
Or no, they have to go to the past, but still,
But
yeah.
it works for me because they're like, this is who I am right now, and that's who I'm going to be tomorrow.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I would do that thing just by thinking about it right now. And it's like they are like you could almost think like they're changing the future, but the future hasn't happened yet.
Yeah.
But they're also changing the past by not doing anything, but they are. It's just brilliant.
It's really great. And it's just fun that like they get all these historical figures and there's not this sequence where like it screws up the timeline of the world. They just had to put them back. That's it.
Yeah.
That's
I
it.
love that. I know but as this movie was going along, I was curious if they were going to get really in the weeds about consequences of time travel.
Right.
And
they don't at all.
Well, yeah, pretty early on, too. I was just like, what is going to be like the conflict
Right.
of this? And it's like the true conflict is them just trying to get to the presentation on time.
Yeah.
That's really it. Because I was just wondering, like, is George Carlin are we going to find out that he's not a good dude? And there's going to be like kind of a show off.
That's
like,
so funny. Your experience and
no
expectation
idea.
of this movie.
Yeah, and then as it's going, and it's like, oh no, they just their biggest obstacle is themselves.
They just have to pass a class.
Yeah.
That's it.
And I love that kind of stuff because although the finding out there's a villain the whole time and stuff can be funny, and there can be a funny showdown and stuff, that is kind of the easiest solution. And so it's just refreshing when that doesn't happen.
And I just think comedies back in the 80s, 90s, 70s, they were a little looser with like I think now there's just this stress on like we really need a good plot.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing to strive for, but sometimes it's like, I don't know, like you can go a little just crazy as long as it'll serve a joke because it is a comedy.
Yeah, have fun with it.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's what I got. And oh, you already did actors, huh?
Pretty much.
Oh,
What's
great.
your first experience with Keanu?
My first experience
or
with
when
Keanu.
did you become aware of Keanu?
I feel like I more became aware of him just as like he's an actor.
Yeah.
That's in stuff. And I remember one of my old buddies, he said he had a take on him back in like middle school.
Okay.
Where he was like, I love Keanu Reeves, but he has to be playing either someone emotionless or a robot.
Yeah.
And if he's
I've
not,
heard
it's
that
bad.
too, yeah.
I don't necessarily agree with that now.
Yeah.
But I think at the time I was like, whoa, yeah, that's right. But I don't even know what the first Keanu Reeves movie I saw was.
Yeah. For the longest time, I thought his name was Canoe.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I did. And then I don't like remember the first thing I saw him in. It just he is a kind of celebrity where it just feels like once you're born, you're aware of his existence. Like so many
he's like mythical.
Yeah, but I do remember seeing like The Lake House with Sandra Bullock and him.
Yeah,
and that is like a drama romance. Remember liking it, like in high school, but then knowing like that's the Matrix guy.
Yeah,
and then when trailers are coming out for John Wick. I was just like, I don't really care about action.
Well, don't get too much into John Wick.
Well, that's all I'm gonna say. It's just like action's just it's all the same.
Yeah,
you know, and that's before I even got into Mission Impossible. That's when those trailers were coming out.
Yeah,
and then, yeah, I think I've always thought too that he is just emotionless. But then when we watched Point Break a couple years ago, I was like, holy crap, this guy is incredible.
Yeah, he's amazing.
He's so good. I still think one of the worst performances I've seen in a movie is probably him in Dracula.
We didn't finish it though.
We didn't, but he was awful, man.
I kind of dug him.
That's great. And I think that's the interesting thing about
he's a bit
him.
of a litmus test. Or litmus test.
What is that?
Litmus test, you know? Like is that what I'm thinking of? Or like no, I'm thinking Rorschach. He's like a Rorschach
what's
test.
the other thing you're saying?
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
But
yeah, like that's you
see the ink blotter and you're like, hey, that looks like this, and I'm like, no, that looks like this.
Yeah.
So
he's a magical unicorn.
He is, yeah.
And I think today in 2021, he is at his peak look.
He's at his peak look, and I think he is in a zone right now where he is not capable of doing any wrong to audience and film goers. Because when he makes an announcement, he was in like a video game, he did like some motion capture. People
what video game?
Lost their minds.
Yeah. You don't have to say it's fine.
I can't remember. It's like the Blade Runner-y one that came out a couple years ago.
Yeah, I'm not gonna know. But that's crazy.
But yeah, and like they make another John Wick movie and people freak out. It gets like crazy. Critics are like, yeah, this is the best thing that's ever been made. Anytime a new one comes out, and audiences are like, it's the best thing in the world.
And then it's no secret that he's like a wonderful person in his personal life, and is like, it's like, how can you not like a person who you cannot hear bad things about him?
I know, it's crazy.
He's just nice.
Because you know, I think like as far as like personality and just the promise of seeing Keanu in a movie, you have like an expectation, and I think the other actor currently working that gives you that same feeling is Tom Cruise, but he has a lot of like asterisks next to his name.
Yeah,
and I choose to turn a blind eye to those because I just like him as an actor so much, and I think he's amazing. And people are allowed to change, but there's still issues, of course. But Keanu, it's like, I don't know. Like, we can all just agree that this guy rules.
Yeah. Enough said.
Well, here we are, folks. It's the Christmas season, and that means I'm putting on another Christmas show on my YouTube, much like I did last year. This year, it's December 11th, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time will be the premiere of Christmas at the Movies. 5 of the songs are going to be available for everyone, and 5 of the songs are only going to be available to patrons of any tier. And we have some wonderful guests this year. We got Jacob and Sharia Summers, Brett Levick, Troy Thompson, Josiah Oliveira, Johnny Gerson, Evan Coons, Noah Cunningham, Aaron Fagan, Richard Bokish, Stephen Nance, Lauren Panter, Anna Marcoux, Reed Campbell, Chris Heisner, Jeremy Eden and his puppets, and also, of course, I'll be there. So mark your calendar, be there at the premiere December 11th, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Be there in the comments. Go to patreon.com/MICAHMCCAW. Get the entire concert. I can tell you right now, I'm still editing it, but it is unbelievably cool, and I think we topped last year. So get ready for Christmas at the Movies. So this movie starts with George Carlin kind of setting the stage. And now that, in light of knowing that you thought this was kind of dazed and confused, I'm very curious what the heck you thought about the intro of this movie.
Can you remember exactly what's going on?
So George Carlin looks up at the screen. I think he's wearing sunglasses, takes them off, and he says, in the future, something to the effect of bowling scores are up, mini golf scores are down, everything's better, the world's at peace. All of these things he's saying.
We figured it out, but it all won't happen without these two guys passing their history class.
Well, he doesn't even say that. He's like, but if these two fall apart or their band doesn't form or something like that, because you find out the history report a little bit later. But
okay.
So I'm just curious what you thought when that happened.
You have to throw out every notion you have in that moment.
And that's what you did?
Let the movie take you, and that's what I did.
Okay.
Pretty simple as that, really.
Great. So they mentioned that they're the two great ones, and then it goes to this very Wayne's World-esque moment.
Yeah, where they're in the garage practicing Bill and Ted. They do not know how to play. They just purely want the rock star lifestyle, but they have no talent for it. They're not putting in they're putting in the dreaming, but not really the work.
And
which is very funny.
It's a great way to introduce them. This whole bit at the beginning is, one of them says, Bill, why are we doing this? We need to make a good video. But don't you think that if we have a good video,
well, we need Van Halen to make a good video, but we can't get Van Halen if we don't have a good video.
And then, but shouldn't we learn how to play?
Yeah.
So it's this funny circular
and right
reasoning.
Off the bat, I am seeing Keanu act in a way I've never seen before in my life.
Yeah. So wait, tell me about what. I'm just so curious. I'm blown away that I've thought this was dazed and confused.
I've seen him mostly in the action stuff that he is most well known for, and then I've seen him in Point Break, and that is just a romance story for the ages. And he is definitely acting over the top in that movie, but that's what the movie calls for. And when I saw that movie, I was like, I've never seen Keanu act like this. So it's just this up to 11 in this movie. I've never seen so many facial expressions go across this man's face. And he's very funny.
Yeah, and maybe you didn't realize how much comedy chops he has.
Yeah.
Because he's funny in this movie.
And I gotta say, down to the costumes, this whole movie is iconic looking.
Yeah.
And I haven't even seen this movie, but it's this all makes sense. Even their hair, they're just both perfect. Perfectly styled. And then they're acting perfect too. I love it. I can't get enough.
I wish I'd have grown up with these movies.
Me too.
Because this is it wasn't. I feel like whenever we have kids, we can show them this pretty early.
Yeah, I think so.
This is and it's so funny. At the beginning, them saying
rated PG-13 because they say the S word.
Yeah, but this is the 80s, right?
But is
PG-13s.
Well, this was the rating even out yet? No, well, 89 it probably was.
It definitely was because I remember the temple. What is it? The Temple of Doom is what breaks the MPAA's like, we need to learn
What year was
another
that?
thing. I'm not
You don't have
sure.
to look it up.
Well,
It's
now
not
I'm
the-
now I'm
it's-
curious.
It's like the early 80s.
I believe so. Temple of Doom is 1984.
Okay.
And is that the first PG-13 or just the one that makes them create the rating?
I thought it was one that made them create the rating.
I think it is.
Because there are some, I think we've talked about like John Hughes movies that I think might have had a PG rating.
Right.
And it's like, no. That's PG-13. But I don't know if PG-13 was created yet. And
right,
I shouldn't even
right.
say necessarily John Hughes. I could be wrong about that. But like an 80s movie's like his.
Yeah, that one, I remember, what was it that you and I watched where we were like, this is like
16
R.
Candles.
It was basically like an R situation. Yeah, Temple of Doom is PG. So it's the one
Okay.
that they created. I can't remember which movie is the first PG-13.
I don't know.
It might be Red Dawn, I think.
Okay.
I think so. Anyway, fact check me on that. So Bill and Ted, one thing that I love about them that's throughout the whole thing is they're these really doofy, stupid people. But yet they sync up and they say things in like at the exact same time often.
Well, it's as if they're operating on a frequency that most people don't get to.
Yeah.
So people who are not operating on that frequency just see it as they're airheads.
Yeah.
And it's just like, oh, they're just best friends. It's so cute.
Uh-huh.
And there's a one part where I think they hug at one point and they say the F word, but like it's just really funny that they're like,
yeah,
they're best
like you got to
friends.
look at it through the lens of
Yeah, but what I'm trying to get to is
Yeah.
they love each other so much, but it's still like 89, men can't hug.
yeah.
And it is like, oh, this makes sense that their friendship has to continue. Like their friendship is destiny is pretty
Yeah.
much what the movie is saying.
Yeah. And it plays on that whole idea you have as a kid when you have a best friend and you are going to conquer the world.
Seriously, yeah. So they go to school and they're in history class and they're, like we said, dumb. They don't know anything. Napoleon is just some French dude, some dead French dude.
Yeah.
And their history teacher tells them that if they don't get an A+ on this presentation, he's got to flunk them. He has no other choice.
Yeah.
And so they don't really know what they're going to do about it. It almost is like, I guess we're just going to have to flunk this class. And they get picked up by Bill's stepmom, who is actually a former classmate.
Yeah. What did you think of this bit?
I thought it was very funny.
I think it's very funny. So, I mean, it's gross, of course, but
that's why it's funny. It's
right.
self-aware.
Bill's dad married someone who just graduated high school.
And they said that she was a senior when they were a freshman.
Yeah. I mean, totally gross, but
Yeah.
it's just funny that he has to say.
She's like, he calls her whatever her name is, and she's like, Bill?
Yeah.
Stepmom.
Yeah. Would you mind taking off that necklace? It's shooting me with light beams.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry. I should have worn sunglasses to this one.
I guess.
So then they have the history class, the Missy mom, and then I think right away.
Well, so you see, Bill's dad only cares about his hot new wife.
Yeah.
So Bill, he's not he doesn't really care about what's happened going on in Bill's life.
Yeah.
And then when Ted goes home, his dad is like this police detective guy and is like,
right.
if you fail, you are going to military school. We're packing your bags tonight because I know you're going to fail.
Yeah.
And you are not the kid that I raised you to be. You're a loser.
And so they have to send George Carlin back because if that happens, then they are not going to make it.
Yeah.
And be friends.
Yeah.
And save the world. And it's such a funny idea too, because if you think about it, if you had a time machine and you could go back to the past, It's just funny that they're like, okay, Bill and Ted, here's this time machine. Do whatever you want. Just pass that history exam.
I know. And yeah, you'd think like if you put it in the hands of those kinds of guys, they would just go like, let's go back to like yesterday and really freak ourselves out again.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
but like they actually go to moments in history and they're having such a fun time doing it. It reminds me a lot of, and we mentioned this while we were watching the movie, of Regular Show.
Absolutely.
Of Mordecai and Rigby. So it's like, okay, J.G. Quintel is like, this has got to be one of his favorite movies of all time.
Absolutely, yeah.
Just because it's two dudes who get into the most craziest hijinks, but they have the most fun. They are constantly almost dying, but they're just laughing the whole time.
Well, and it's the kind of thing like in Regular Show, the first episode of the show, one of my favorite episodes, is they find a synthesizer and they play it and they enjoy it. But Rigby, the little raccoon, he starts going like, you know, I do this with the synthesizer. I send it to the moon. I take a refrigerator and I send it to the moon. And he just keeps singing these songs and it winds up like sending all this stuff to the moon. And then the moon is going to crash on Earth. And there's like a moon monster. And they have to go to the moon and fight this moon monster.
That show so much.
I know. It's the best. And then they come back and it's the exact same kind of thing as this, where it's like, okay, these two people have to pass a history test. How do they do it? Well, obviously, they get a time machine. They travel through time. There's some hijinks where they all get lost at the mall.
They do what they're supposed to do. Like, they just do it. So George Carlin shows up in a phone booth to tell them this.
Yeah.
And then right behind him are Bill and Ted in a phone booth. With some other characters you don't really see. And they come in and like, what's up, dude? Most excellent. We're really going to pass that history presentation. But
now, can I do a quick pause? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But one thing that's also funny is Alex Winters is very determined to pass this test. He doesn't want to shirk it off. He wants to just like, he wants to make this happen. So that's funny. And then they go to the Circle K.
Alex Winters, you mean Bill?
Yes, Bill.
Okay.
Do you realize that they went to the Circle K to ask people history questions?
Yeah.
Because there's like passerbyers.
Oh, that's right. They go to the Circle K and then they're like, dude, we're getting nothing here. Let's go to the 7-Eleven over here.
And they're asking people history questions to try and learn.
Yeah.
That is their whole idea.
Yeah. Well, Micah, there was no internet yet.
It's just so funny because they have books.
I know. And they're using the book.
I know. So
they're told, make sure, Ted, to set your watch and then give the princesses my love and have fun, pretty much.
And when they're trying to prove to them that they are, in fact, Bill and Ted from the future, they say, what number are we thinking of?
Oh, I love that.
And they go,
69.
And then that's when we get the iconic Keanu Reeves, whoa.
Yeah.
Which, if you don't know, we'll talk about it again in Matrix, but in Matrix, they make a direct reference to this movie because when Keanu discovers the Matrix, he goes...
You mean Neo?
Well, yeah, when Neo discovers it, he goes, whoa. And I think that there's a John Wick-esque moment that he also says, whoa.
Okay.
I'm not sure about that.
I'm sure I'll be hyper aware of it.
Yeah. Because here's the other thing I love about both Keanu and Alex is... Even though these movies are, I think, well, I mean, I guess I've only seen Bill and Ted 1, but this is a great movie. I will go so far as to say it's great.
I would go so far as to say it's a perfect movie.
I mean, it rules. But there's a lot of actors who would maybe once they got older pretend like this didn't happen or laugh it off as a joke.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as I can tell, these two guys have always deeply cherished this and loved and respected that they were a part of it. I mean, these two guys really, really wanted to make a sequel.
Do you think Robert Pattinson will ever come back around on Twilight? Or is he too cool?
That's a good example where, I mean, those aren't great movies, but yeah, I don't know that Robert Pattinson will ever be like, you know what? I really liked that I was in those.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I have seen an interview
where I mean, they're obviously very different than this type of movie. Those are angsty YA movies that are like, the sexual tension is palpable. Like, they're just awkward movies, but they're fun.
I don't know if that's the best, like, correlation.
I know, but that's just the first thing that pops in my head is you can look up interviews of them doing press and him just making fun of these movies when he's supposed to be promoting them.
Yeah. Although
Very funny interviews.
now that you mention it, though, I do remember seeing something where he did say, like, it's less of a, oh yeah, I love those movies. I'm glad I was a part of them, and more of like, I understand that I wouldn't have the career I have without those movies.
Okay.
Which is something.
That makes sense.
But I just love that these guys have like wanted to make a third movie for decades, and then they finally are able to. And from all the reviews and stuff I saw, everyone just thought it was like a delightful movie.
Great.
So it's cool. These guys rule. And so then they're gonna go back in time. So the first place they go is to Austria, in 1805, and that's when they pick
invading.
up. Yeah.
So they pick up Napoleon. They take him back home. And, well, I think, no, Napoleon accidentally comes back. Because... Yeah,
he, like, trips into it or something like that.
Into the time hole warp thing, and it was so funny because he gets, like, caught in a tree. And then they're like,
does.
Dude, this is what we should do. Hop around these places. Right. And then they leave Napoleon Bonaparte with Ted's younger brother.
Who, if Keanu and Alex were not in this movie, he would get my MVP performance.
The kid?
He's so
good.
And he's really funny.
He is. It's funny. I think that we are incredibly lucky today in 2021 with the amount of the quality of child acting we have. And I know we've talked about it a lot. Mm-hmm. We're going through a wonderful period of incredible child actors.
Yeah.
But when you go back to 80s movies, you get some of the worst child acting you could possibly get. We just watched Children of the Corn.
Yeah.
Which is an 80s movie. And that has some of the worst child acting I've ever seen. The movie's very campy and very fun. I don't care about it.
Although the guy the kid who plays the preacher is actually really good.
And I think he's like 20. So
in that movie?
Yeah, I think, well, he's not like 12. He's like a teenager at least.
Okay. If he's 20, I'm 75.
I know. Well, you should look up his IMDb picture actually, because he kind of is like the Harold and Maude guy, where he never actually kind of grew up, you know?
Okay.
And it looks kind of weird at a certain point.
Well, keep on saying your thing while I look this up.
What was I saying?
You're talking about child actors.
Oh, but so watching an 80s movie and having Ted's brother like have such a good actor in it, it just feels like the cherry on top of this movie. You know what I mean? And it's great, and I love whenever they would cut back to what's going on with Ted's brother Napoleon. Ooh, they're eating ice cream now. Oh, they're bowling now, and like Napoleon like throws a fit like a baby, which is kind of like the funny trope about Napoleon that you often see is it's the short man simplex or
complex
complex thing. But when he's eating the ice cream, it's so funny. And those guys come up and they call him a pig and they give him a pin.
Yeah.
He's like, you're a Ziggy.
You're a Ziggy Piggy. It's like the thing that ice cream shop does.
The most degrading ice cream shop I've ever seen.
There's something, I can't put my finger on it. But first of all, the guy from Children of the Corn was probably around 14 when they shot it.
Okay.
So
still older than you were thinking, though, right?
Yeah, but that tracks. 20.
14, are you sure?
Yeah.
Okay.
I did the math in my head, yo.
Okay.
Wait a second. Actually, no, I did the math wrong. Hang on. So this kid was born in 1959. And the movie came out in 1984.
Oh, yeah, he was 14.
So he was like 23 when they did it.
Yeah.
What?
Who was right?
You were right, and I'm sorry. So, okay, this guy who plays Napoleon,
mm-hmm.
and the way they wrote Napoleon, I don't know what it is exactly. Maybe we can figure it out. But it's like, it doesn't feel like they're not doing like the obvious jokes.
Yeah.
Really, mostly with any of them. There's a couple like, okay, that's a little more obvious, but it just seems kind of like they tried to do the history report. Like, okay, let's take this crazy general and let's just see what would happen if we put ice cream in front of him.
I think so. I think so.
I think that's like the magic of this
Well,
movie.
I think there's nothing funnier than transporting someone from 1805, the biggest commander of the French army, to current day 1989, and he's just straight up bowling, and he gets it.
Yeah.
And he knows how to score it because he's doing the score.
Yeah, he's like cheating at the score.
Yeah.
He's getting mad.
He's just almost completely assimilated into American society in 1989.
Yeah.
That's like the joke.
Which I suppose there is a commentary there of like a society where like maybe you take it either way, that like anyone and everyone can join into the society at any time and get it and have fun. Or maybe they're commenting, if we're being a little more aggressive, and saying like America doesn't really have that much unique about it because anyone gets it immediately.
Yeah, potentially.
These are two little fun tidbits to think about.
It's also just funny that he's hanging out with kids.
I know it's
and it's like Ted's younger brother and these twin girls. What's the story behind that friendship?
Well, I'm just trying to like. There's something so endearing about it because I think if you made this movie today, or more like 15 years ago, pre like the takeover of Judd Apatow in comedies, I think that Napoleon the whole time they'd be doing some riffing on him being short, like the entire time, and that would have been every single joke. But this one, it's like it's not unique to Napoleon that he's eating ice cream.
Mm-hmm.
I thought they were going to do something with Neapolitan ice cream, maybe.
Me too.
But even that, they're just like, no, it's just a French general eating ice cream and bowling. And I love that.
And then he gets ditched by Ted's younger brother because he was boring or annoying.
Yeah, he says he was a dick.
Yeah.
He was being a dick. So, I mean, that's amazing.
So they go back into the time machine and go to the wild, wild west.
Yeah, in 1859.
And it's just so, they're dressed in their modern day clothing. And it's just another thing that's so funny about the movie is they are not shocked about
I know.
like realizing
they're
that
just
they
like,
can,
yeah, this is something we can do now.
and it's like, this can help us, bro. So
I know.
they just walk into a saloon because they're thirsty. They order beer because they realize it's 1859, and they're like, we didn't even get carded.
Yeah.
Most awesome. And they're just having beer, and then Billy the Kid rolls in.
Yeah.
And he asks for two dudes, and they're like, hey, we need one of you guys. So let's make this work. And they're gambling, but Billy the Kid is cheating, and a barroom brawl breaks out.
Yeah. And then it leads them to run off, and then now they have Billy the Kid. I love how quick all this stuff is,
it's so
too.
quick. That's what it keeps the movie clipping along. It's so fun. I love that even so in this ballroom or this bar brawl.
Ballroom blitz.
Yeah. This bar brawl. The action's funny. And there's so many, it's just chaos. Bill and Ted get their heads smashed through a wall, and they're all like the like prostitutes.
Yeah.
But it's funny. They're not even like scantily dressed. They're just girls.
Yeah,
and they're kind of like, oh, hello. And they're like, dude.
Most excellent.
Yeah. And they like stick their heads back in when they get pulled out. It's just good. So,
then they
get Billy the
Greece.
Kid.
Oh, sorry.
They take Billy the Kid with them.
Yeah. And then they go to Greece, like 410 BC, and they meet Socrates.
Yeah.
As we all know and love. And another thing that blew my mind, and I had forgotten this, is that if the people who speak different languages do not speak or understand English.
Yeah.
And I just think that that's kind of wild.
You mean like in that they kept that for the movie?
Yeah, like I think any other movie at this time would have been like, oh, let's bring Napoleon back and he just has to have a French accent.
Oh, yeah.
Let's bring Socrates back and he just has like a Greek accent.
Yeah.
But they bring them back and, they can't communicate with them if they can't speak the same language. So,
right. And again, guys transported back in time in modern day clothing, and no one's freaking out about it.
I know.
I love it.
And so while they're there, Bill and Ted kind of make motions to Socrates. And at one point, Socrates says, the only true wisdom is knowing you know nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, that is the thesis of this movie,
Mm-hmm.
is that though these are the stupidest guys, they're actually the smartest because they know they don't know anything. And that is why they will bring peace to the universe.
Mm-hmm. So
Guys, it's clever.
they basically tell Socrates through gestures and stuff that we're all dust in the wind. Isn't that
yeah,
a quote? They
yeah, like
quote
a Kansas
song?
quote. That's
Yeah,
a
yeah,
Kansas
yeah.
song,
And
which is the Bible too. But
they're quoting Kansas.
yeah, definitely.
And they get Socrates to go with them,
Yeah.
and then they go where?
They go to England, the 15th century, and they spy two girls in a window, and they simultaneously say, "Those are historical babes."
Yeah.
Which,
I love that.
I mean,
love
if
that.
you don't find that funny, I'm not sure if comedy is a thing that you enjoy. And then they have a big old fight.
Well, they got to get with the babes. They got those must be the princesses.
Yeah.
So they're trying to figure out how to get to them. They put on knight armor to disguise themselves.
And they play Star Wars
They
for a while.
They play Micah. That is one of the funniest jokes in this movie to me. Is that they are transported back to England to medieval times, and they're playing Star Wars. They're making
I didn't
the
even think of it that way.
lightsaber noises with their mouths while they're
they
actually
already have
carrying
like
swords.
they could just be doing like Arthur.
Yeah.
But they're oh my gosh, yeah, that's even
It's
that's
just
an extra layer of funny.
I loved it so much. So they're just not taking anything seriously, and Ted rolls down some stairs, and Bill sees him get stabbed and killed, and he thinks he's dead. But you find out really quickly Ted's not dead. He rolled out of his suit somehow.
Yeah. And that's one of those, like, certain comedies can really get away with just logic that doesn't really make sense. And so I just love that, like, when they meet back up, he's like, "How did you get out of that, Ted? I thought you were dead." And he's like, "Well, I rolled out of my armor."
It was the weirdest thing.
Yeah, that's the explanation.
Let's go find the babes.
That's enough.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
So they go find the princesses.
And they're
He
engaged
sends
to be
him-
married.
He sends him his love.
Yes.
Ted does. And then they're arranged to be married to oafs.
A bunch of what is it? Ugly dudes, I think is what they keep calling them.
Yeah. And they are run out of the castle.
But
by
before
the
that,
king.
the king is like, "We're going to put them in Iron Maidens."
Oh, yeah.
And they go, "All right, Iron Maiden."
I love this so much. So they're about to get their heads cut off, but they're saved by Billy the Kid and Socrates.
Yeah.
And so they all run out,
Yep.
and they don't take anyone with them for this, right? They just get out with the skin of their teeth.
Yeah, they do.
By the skin of their teeth.
Yeah. And is this
right?
Sure.
Okay.
Everybody's got skin on their teeth. Yeah, so is this when they get like that's later.
Well, then they
I
kind of
wrote
go
it.
on a montage.
Well, first they make it to the chamber in 2088.
Okay, yeah.
And they go there. This is the part that I was laughing out loud. Because Bill and Ted walk out, and they're in the future where everyone knows that they are what is it again? The two great ones.
Uh-huh.
And they walk out, and then all of these people from the future walk around them, and the music is swelling. This like rock opera anthem sound is happening, and all the people are air guitaring, and it is so funny.
Yeah.
I was laughing so hard at this part.
And the people sitting on the thrones are like, "It's you."
Yeah.
And then they do the whole air guitar thing, and then like, "Sorry guys, gotta go." Everyone's like, "Oh."
And then they say like, "Be excellent to each other, always." I think is it be excellent to each other always?
Yeah.
And then they go away.
And then they go back on their quest.
Yeah.
I love it.
So then Napoleon's eating ice cream. We talked about that. They go to Vienna, and I think this is when things are broken. Like their time machine
It's
starts
like
getting
breaking
broken.
as they're doing this. So they pick up Sigmund Freud,
Yeah. They
And
pick
then-
up Beethoven,
Beethoven,
Joan of Arc.
Joan of Arc,
It's spelled corrected, but it's
Genghis Khan.
Genghis Khan. It's spell corrected to Gus Cam.
They go get Gus Cam, and then they get
Lincoln.
Lincoln.
And then the machine sends them 1 million years BC.
Right.
And that's
Their
when
antenna is broken.
their antenna's broken. And okay, we're not going to consider this up there with some of the great one-shot, long shots in history, but
Maybe the grossest.
And when the shot was over, I realized, oh, that was not faked.
Yeah.
So the camera just goes down a line of all the historical people who are all chewing gum.
Which is a marvel in itself. Because what's gum to them?
Yeah. So they're all chewing gum, and then they're putting it in a ball.
And passing it down.
Passing it down. And Keanu, puts it up to his mouth or something. He does it in a way that's like, ooh, that's extra gross. And then they hand it to Bill, and he's able to put it on the antenna. But it is one shot, and it's like everyone was chewing gum and grabbed each other's gum and put it all together.
That's so gross.
I mean, they certainly didn't film that last year in 2020.
No.
And then they come back to the Circle K.
Yeah.
And they have the conversation, but it's the reverse because they're from the future. And then when they get in the phone booth, Bill says,
well, yeah, they're like, we have loads of time left. And it's like, no, you only have 2 hours is what George Carlin says. And Ted goes, oh, I never set my watch. I better remind myself.
And then as they're getting in the telephone booth, it's getting ready to go away. Bill says, that conversation made more sense that time.
Yeah.
And then they get home, and much like anyone, they have to do their chores. So there's a montage of them with the historical giants of our times in human history helping them do chores.
And Beethoven loves it. He loves cleaning that
window. He's into the Windex, yeah.
Genghis Khan is trying to drink the toilet water, then bathing in the toilet water.
Right.
So he has shown how to clean a toilet. And the rest of them were vacuuming, dusting, all the fun stuff.
Yeah.
And then they go to the mall.
Yeah, because they're trying to track down Napoleon.
Yes.
And
because that's when they go to Ted's younger brother, and he's like, we ditched him. He was being a dick. So they're trying to find him.
So then they're at the mall, and everyone spreads out and does their own thing at the mall.
Yes.
So Beethoven goes to a music store and starts rocking out on keyboards.
Yes. It's so funny. The guy is like, you can try this. And he touches that button that pre-plays the music. And Beethoven's just like,
Yeah.
Abraham Lincoln is getting an old-timey photo taken of himself.
Yeah.
And the guy is like, okay, give me the hat back. And he's like, this is my hat. I'm Abraham Lincoln. He's like, yeah, whatever. Give me the hat back. And he has to run away with his hat.
And I mean, I hate to steal other people's podcasts, but it looks like we just did an episode of Great Bits, because that is a great bit right there. Joan of Arc joins a eucalyptic.
That's a plant. Eucalyptus?
Yeah.
An aerobics class.
Aerobics. Not the plant that koala bears eat.
No.
Okay.
She takes over an aerobics class, and I love it.
Yeah.
That part I love. I love this whole part. I love this whole movie.
And
Genghis Khan goes
to a sports store.
Havoc. Yeah.
And then I think Billy the Kid and Socrates are hitting on some girls or something.
Oh, yeah.
And then Sigmund Freud with the corn dog.
Yeah.
He shows up with a corn dog to talk to some girls, and he's holding it straight up. And then
they're striking out.
And the corn dog, he kind of lets it drop low. It's sagging.
Yeah.
And, think of Sigmund Freud.
Yeah. You do the rest.
And I did write down exactly what they said to the brother.
Okay.
It's funnier having the full line. Bill says, do you realize you stranded one of the world's greatest leaders? And he says, he was a dick. So then Napoleon goes to the water park, Waterloop.
Yep.
Thinking it's Waterloo, the famous battle where he is defeated.
Mm-hmm.
And he
has a grand old time.
A great time at the water park. Now, see, it's like that one, okay, it is a joke about Napoleon. But the fact that Napoleon would enjoy the water slides and have fun, it's like, what is the joke there besides it's just kind of funny?
It's so funny.
And then later in the movie, like when they're at the presentation, did you notice he's talking about the battle plans like they're water slides,
Yeah.
like formations of
Yeah.
water slides, and then he's gonna and I think Bill says, I don't think that's gonna work.
Yeah. So they get everyone, but no. So they find Napoleon, but everyone else got arrested.
Yeah,
and
so now they have to go to the
police
sheriff's station. And we sort of talked about this, but this is when they're like sneaking in, and then they're telling themselves, okay, we just have to time travel after our presentation and put all this stuff in the sheriff's office. Like,
And by simply thinking about it,
It
and
appears.
talking about
Yeah.
it happens. I keep saying I love that.
You should. It's
record.
awesome.
It's so funny.
And it's just so funny because, again, go back to what Socrates said. It's like, the only true wisdom is knowing you know nothing. So these guys who are very stupid, we're thinking they're going to get caught in a paradox or something, but they just figure it out and navigate time travel easily.
Mhm.
And they're able to go, oh, I guess I did take his keys. Maybe they're right here. And then like he puts the recorder of himself, Ted, going, hey, Dad, distracting him.
Uh-huh.
And then they go into another room, and there's a typed, or there's a fax that comes in from
themselves.
them that says, do this, do that. Oh, and don't forget to duck. And then they duck right then, and someone gets up and walks.
Uh-huh.
And then they break out
They break
all
everyone
the
out.
historical figures.
And it keeps cutting to the presentation at school, and the teacher keeps looking down at the list and seeing
Yeah.
Bill and Ted are not there. They're going to fail. And the presentations are over, and he's like, well, guys, thanks all for being here. Even not everyone was here to present. And then
Yeah.
the lights go down. And when the lights went down, I legitimately got so excited. And I'm
Yeah.
like, they're doing a big thing.
Yeah.
This is just what the doctor ordered.
And it's like heavy rock music. There's like smoke on
There's
stage.
smoke. I mean, it's a complete light show.
And they come out and it's like, from San Dimas High, it's Bill, whatever his name is, and
Bill S.
Ted,
Preston Esquire.
Yeah.
And Ted.
Theodore, something. And they go through, and I think that they say later the presentation is 7 minutes because
Oh, it is?
Abraham Lincoln says 7 minutes ago.
Oh. So they did
But-
all of that in 7 minutes?
Which is hilarious because when you're watching it, it seems like this had to have been an hour long.
People are eating ice cream at one point, Micah.
It reminds me of that great scene in Community. In the first season, I think it's the second episode where Jeff has to do a Spanish presentation with Pierce. And they do this presentation.
And it looks so long.
And it looks so long. And I think Chang, the teacher, even says something like, we've been here for an hour and a half. and it's this montage, and there's like this music playing over it. It's so funny. And they get an F, or they get like a D-.
No, they get an F.
It's so funny.
Yeah.
And it reminded me of that situation.
Yeah.
So
They're it's just like, you know him, you love him. It's the greatest philosopher of history. It's Socrates.
yeah.
So they present everyone. They let everyone showcase their skills. Joan of Arc, she's sparring with Bill. And then Socrates, he does some gestures, and they translate what he's saying, which is, we already kind of talked about that. And then, like I said earlier, Freud analyzes Ted. One of the highlights of the many highlights of this movie.
Yeah.
And then one of the funniest things of this whole scene is, it seems like everyone's presented, and then it's like almost like, you guys have been waiting for him the whole time. He's one of the best presidents that we've ever had. We introduced to you Abraham Lincoln. And it's like the biggest applause that he gets, because
it's also hilarious that the students are into this.
That's hilarious too. But it's the Abraham Lincoln thing being so huge is so funny to me, because they mention actually a lot in this movie, I think, about Disneyland and Disney World, right?
I think one time they say
Like a couple
the Hall of
times.
Presidents. They mention the Hall of
So
Presidents.
this just makes me think, like, is everyone just so amped because they've been to Disneyland and they've seen the Abraham Lincoln exhibit, and it's just like, oh yeah, he's so great.
And I like to imagine that everyone in that auditorium, including the teachers and the parents by the end of it, are like, oh, they did get the real people. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And then, of course, they have stayed in school, Ted did not have to go to military school, so they can
How
still...
did they not get an A+?
Yeah, they can still form their band, Wild Stallions, and save the universe.
So everyone
Back in the
goes
garage.
back home. They're back in the garage practicing, and they are like, it's time for us to learn how to play.
And Rufus shows up, and he knows a few licks or two.
Yeah. And he brings the babes, the historical babes.
Yeah, who apparently the 4 of them are Wild Stallions.
Apparently, yeah.
But then they start playing, and it sounds horrible, and he's like, trust me, guys. He like looks at the camera, and he's like, trust me. They get a lot better.
Yeah.
And that's the movie.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so endearing. It's truly like a fun romp.
Uh-huh.
I love it.
Me too.
And I mean, people say the second one is better.
That's awesome. I can't wait.
Which is kind of nuts.
I know.
I don't know. I kind of don't know how it could be.
I know.
This does feel like a lightning in a bottle situation.
Mm-hmm.
But
we'll find out.
I even saw it because I was looking on Letterboxd and I was looking at the people I follow, and I think there were at least 2 people who said something to the effect of like, well, it's definitely not as good as Bogus Journey, but Excellent Adventure is still pretty good. I'm
they
like,
say that about this movie?
They're
that
saying
it's
like
not as good as Bogus
Yeah,
Adventure?
and I'm like, really?
Wow.
So, I mean, we may really prove ourselves right, and sequels are never better than the originals.
Wow.
So
You love to see it.
We did it.
Uh-huh.
We've started this epic journey on Keanu Reeves. And
Welcome.
Yeah, welcome. Let us know. I mean,
welcome to the jungle of Keanu Reeves.
And feel free to go to Facebook and join the Macabre Podcast Universe Pandemonium page. And let's talk about Keanu this month.
What was your first experience with him? What do you think about him? Good? Bad? He's got a little bit of a Nicolas Cage thing going on.
Sure.
That I'm just now realizing. But he is...
But he's not nearly as unhinged.
What I mean about it, though, he is much more favorably looked upon than Nicolas Cage. But part of that is, as we said previously, Keanu seems to be perfect in the public's eye. Nicolas Cage, oof.
He's like the
Interesting guy.
Bizarro Keanu.
Whoa.
But even that, I don't know that I'm comfortable putting them in the same category.
No, but I'm just now realizing, though, that...
It makes me uncomfortable.
That throughout my relationship with both of them, there have been very high highs and very low lows for me.
Sure.
And that's all it.
Yeah.
That's all it.
I was trying to check our calendar here. Yeah, we're in November. So Scooby-Doo episode on Patreon is out now.
Cool.
And last week we talked about Eternals.
Wow.
So go to patreon.com.
Wonder what I thought.
I bet we liked it. Patreon.com/Micah Macaw. Link is in the bio. I mean, the description of this episode.
Are you making an Instagram post?
What? Please sign up. If we get to 50 patrons, not if, when we get to 50, and we're more than halfway there, we're going to launch another Patreon exclusive podcast. So we'll have 2 Patreon exclusives a month, and it'll be where we cover the rest of the Pixar movies that we haven't covered either on our main feed or on our other podcast on Patreon. So sign up. Let's get to 50. And next month is the Christmas show.
Yeah.
So you're going to want to watch that, and patrons get to watch the full show. Non-patrons only get to watch half the show.
I would sure love to watch the whole thing.
And it is Christmas at the movies this year.
Whoa.
So we're doing Christmas songs from movies. So if you remember the Christmas show last year, it's going to be like that, but they're all Christmas themed. I mean, movie themed. Or TV specials.
Great. What's Christmas if not for a TV special?
Exactly. You might hear some Rudolph. You might hear Frosty. I don't know. Might hear an original song about the Elf movie. Who knows? So check that out. Thanks for listening. Next week, it is Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey. Can't wait.
Bye.